Greetings. So, my name is G. I'm your host tonight, and this is episode 1 of the Historical Boxing Society podcast. So, today I kind of wanted to talk about how I'm kind of trying to rank these beginning pioneer fighters as I kind of go through them. You know what my scoring system might appear as. One thing I wanted to be very certain of is that I kind of wanted to be far less opinion oriented in my approach to these fighters than, stuff you might find on a forum where this guy can never beat this guy. It's just the opinions just doesn't really matter much. It means nothing really. So we want some more concrete kind of approach to things. So me personally, I kind of created this 3-tier system that I made to try and do my analysis of a fighter. So the first thing is I got my own score, which I just kind of go through a fighter's resume fight by fight, and I just kind of grade them on a pretty simple scale, actually. I give them 3 points for a win, 2 points for a championship level loss, which would be, a very competitive fight, maybe a split decision draw, something like that. And 1 point for a basic draw and 0 points for a loss. You don't get anything for it. Just straight up loss. So I use that system to create a score, which I come up with, and it's a pretty good indication, at least, of a boxer's complete resume and, their whole chronological history with a pretty fair approach to things, I think. So, and the next system that I have, the second tier that I use to judge a fighter, is this is very easy. I use championship rounds fought. So what exactly does championship rounds fought actually even mean? Well, I built a database using championship rounds fought. This is measured as a fight that is against a very good second-rate fighter at the time of engagement, is how I put it. So basically, just very competitive rounds is basically how I applied it, with a 25-round limit, because we're not going to give somebody like 50 championship rounds for some 50 fight occurrence. It's just there's got to be a cap on it. The cap's 25 rounds. So basically you can come up with a number then of championship rounds fought for all these fighters. So basically the score of 100 or better is probably pretty certainly a solid bar for a second tier fighter. And fighters that were really good, premium of the era, they tend to even get over 200 championship rounds fought, which is just the rounds fought that actually meant something, instead of the frivolous, third-rate opponents trying to develop a skill. This is the rounds that meant something. We don't want to get too complicated about it. That's just a pretty basic thing. So, and then the third and final tier that I use to try and grade fighters is a basic simulation program that I created. And this is using the computer. I made my own database off of information on Boxing Rec, and I kind of created each fighter without any bias using this basic generalized formula of just parameters that they achieved on Boxing Rec, and then just applied it across all the fighters of every era. So when I created a simulation mode, so I can kind of use the simulation even if I don't agree with some of its results. I can just use it as a really good tool to find a fighter's peer and like what he might be matched up with, and where the fighters of his era, are better than a Pacific fighter. So the simulation works pretty good to try and figure out who the people that never got a chance to meet, how they might have actually had the actual results from somebody from a different era. It's a pretty good tool, I think. I mean, it's not meant to be perfect. It's just meant to give an extra thought process to the whole ranking system, basically. So anyway, that's kind of in a long shot the different scoring approaches that I use, and you'll kind of get a feel for it as I move forward. And about myself, I've been into boxing since I was probably like a very young teen. I rented or checked out books from the library, and by the time I was like 14, 15, I knew like all the championship heavyweight boxers anyway, at a young age. And then I kept studying it pretty relentlessly, and by the time I was mid-20s, I thought I kind of had a pretty good grasp on how I viewed the historical fighters. And basically, I'm about 20 years past the point of now from when I was 20, and some of the ideas I had then, I don't really necessarily agree with because I've gotten much more advanced at it. So what I'm trying to tell you is I've spent basically the better part of 25 years trying to figure out my approach to what each heavyweight boxer, how good they were, and I always had interest in it. I was always a complete rube, and I'm extremely meticulous in that I try and just comb over things over and over again to get a very clear perception of the fighters. And after I kind of got like farther into my career, I realized that really to get a really good idea of how the fighter is to really just not so much trying to read a book on them or a summary of them or just an indication of them, but just kind of basically go through the historical newspapers of the day and kind of read the fight accounts of exactly what happened, exactly what went down. There's no better indication than how a fighter performed, reading a summary of them doesn't really so much give you information on a Pacific fight. So that's how I approach things. I'm an incredible researcher. I'm very meticulous, and this is my approach to going through all these different fighters as I try and explain to you, very certain terms, how good each fighter was and kind of my thoughts on them, basically, in general. So, anyway, I don't want to run long here. This is how I score boxers and my approach to them. Episode 1 ending. Thanks for listening. This is G signing off.